3,000 years ago, as I know some of you did, but if you lived 3,000 years ago, and Emmett is one of those people, and you were living somewhere near Jerusalem, what you would do to be Jewish. There were no Jewish preschools. There were no Jewish kosher butchers. There were no B'nai Mitzvah. The only way to really show that you were Jewish was 3 times a year. You would walk from wherever you lived. At this point, it could have been Greece or Turkey or Iraq. It could have been, just to walk. Imagine walking, if you've been there, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem as a schlep, let alone if you're coming from somewhere up north or somewhere that's now a different country. And you would walk that whole way 3 times a year, the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 walking holidays, Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot. These times a year you would come to Jerusalem. And part of it is you would come because you had to. It's what you did to be Jewish. And you would take your animal, or you would buy an animal and you would sacrifice it. But more, you went to Jerusalem because it was a way to see people you hadn't seen since the last Yom Tov, since the last holiday. You wanted to find a way to catch up with old friends and old neighbors in a time before there were telegrams or letters. How do you find out how everybody's doing? So you go all the way to Jerusalem. You trek all the way there, maybe carrying your animal with you, maybe with your family. And when they got there, the high priest or the king would look out and see all of these people. And the high priest or the king, either way, would do what most of us, what so many people would do when they see a large gathering of people. They go, I better make a speech. I better say something. I better make this important. I better give a convocation to this moment to say how incredible it is that you are here. And so what they did is they took out the Torah. This is back when there was only in the world maybe one Torah. It wasn't like every synagogue had 1 or 10 of them in their Aron HaKodesh. There was one, and it wasn't on wooden pegs. It was just on a scroll. So it's like a hear ye kind of thing that they are opening up. And they would, when they decided they wanted to come out, the king or the high priest, it was dependent on which era it was, would come out with the scroll. And they would take, some of the Levi'im would take these planks and build like a stage right there. And they would blow shofars to announce the coming of the Torah, to announce this moment. And everybody would stand there in awe. And from perhaps sunrise until midday, they just sat there listening to the king or the high priest read the Torah. In the days before television or radio, in the days before almost anybody was literate, to have somebody tell you this incredible story is so profound. This feeling must have been overwhelming. And also, it's supposed to feel a little bit like they're at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, we sang a psalm before, the one that says Kol over and over again. We sing this psalm. It's supposed to be the sound of the shofar over and over as if we're at Mount Sinai. So you can imagine being in Jerusalem and having these trumpets blowing, and this man comes from far away and reads the law. It feels like this Moses moment. And we reenact that here now in present day. We reenact it. It's supposed to feel like Mount Sinai. Tomorrow morning, Isla and Judah are going to take a Torah, and one of them will carry it out, and one of them will carry it back, as if to say that they are now Moses in our community. They're going to walk around to all of you as if to say, you were standing at Mount Sinai also. You're not just here in Thousand Oaks in the 21st century. You're also 3,300 years ago at Mount Sinai, which is also to say you're standing here 3,000 years ago or 2,500 years ago in Jerusalem looking at the temple that after you've walked all the way here from wherever your family was living at the time. And sometimes we would read the whole Torah. Sometimes they would decide what part of the Torah to read. This is before we had the cycle of Torah, where we start with Bereshit in October. We work our way through till the end of the Torah around the following September and start over again. This was they got to decide what to read. What would be most relevant to read in this moment would probably be this week's Torah portion that they're going to read tomorrow morning, Parshat Emor, because this tells us how to celebrate holidays. And if you think about how your family celebrates holidays, if we took the next, we were not going to, if we took the next half hour and asked, how do you do Sukkot? How do you do Pesach? What does Rosh Hashanah or Hanukkah look like in your house? Hopefully what we hear, maybe not from everybody, but the hope is about how many people you have, about how many people are at your house, how many people are in your sukkah, how many nights you hosted. If you came here on second day of Pesach or first day of Pesach and people were talking about their previous night's Seder, it's almost like this one-upsmanship. We had 30 people. We had 35 people. We had 50 people. How many people you had? Because the idea was 3,300 years ago and 3,000 years ago and today. The moments that feel holy are the moments that we're together, the moments that we're part of a community and part of a congregation. If you went back in time, the idea that we read Torah actually 3 times a week comes from the idea, which we read on Shabbat, on Saturdays and on Mondays and Thursdays, is because Mondays and Thursdays were market days. It's when the most people were there. People were out and about. It was a time to learn together, to be together. Being Jewish then and being Jewish now, but how we spend time together. Moments are only holy if we make them holy. If you've never celebrated Shavuos before, if you've never had Shavuot, then it's just another day on the calendar. But if you've had Shavuot, if you've been here and stayed up all night learning while eating cheesecake and taking Lactaid, then you know what it's like to have Shavuot. If you've celebrated Shavuot in Jerusalem, you know that every building in Jerusalem has people teaching in it. And you get a map of everything that's going on. It's like the Netflix is a joke festival where every venue has something exciting going on. And you look at it, you go, okay, at 11 o'clock we go to Hadar, and at 11:45 we got to make our way across town to Schechter, because at 12:15 in the morning the CJ has a thing going on. Because everybody in Jerusalem walks together to the Kotel, to the Wailing Wall, so that at sunrise on Shavuot, there are 100,000 people standing there to hear, to be, to pray, to put a note in the wall, to have a moment. But maybe for you it's different. Maybe Pesach for you is just your family at the table. Maybe it's that moment when somebody breaks the matzah and they say the same joke they say every year. Maybe it's the time, it's how people pour the wine or how people say Kiddush. But what it's been since 3,300 years ago, or maybe further back, is that what being Jewish means is being together, being a community. Today is Isla and Judah's birthdays. They turned 13 today. Happy birthday to you. But we if it weren't for this moment, if it weren't for the community that they grew up in, we don't note it as B'nai Mitzvah. It's the fact that we show up for each other. It's the fact that we show up for each other and make sure that all of these moments can be sacred. This is what community is, and this is what we strive to be, so that next year and the year after, so that each week we get to celebrate with families, and each week we also mourn with people, because we don't celebrate alone and we don't mourn alone. We mark each of these moments to be special, because that's what it means to be part of a community back then and today. And we just had TK Shabbat, where all of these like 5-year-olds were up here singing their hearts out, and to think that, God willing, whatever the math is, 8 years from now, they are standing up here on the bima with some of you sitting right there in the pews thinking about how far they've come and the fact that we are still here and still a community and still celebrating with each other.